A lot of people think you have to touch, taste, feel a property, right? But in this day and age, it's easier than ever not to. I find great deals halfway across the country. We never have seen them before with our physical eyes in our lives.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I am your host, Billy Keels, and I am really looking forward to you enjoying and learning through today's conversation with today's guest. It's absolutely amazing. I know you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And so really appreciate you spending your time, investing your time with me and today's guest. But before we do that, just a couple things that I do want to share with you because I think it's very, very important. Thanks largely in part to your continued commitment to being here and investing your time with us, downloading the episodes, sharing the episodes with your family, your friends, and also by leaving your honest written reviews as well as ratings. The podcast continues to move up the charts. Cannot thank you enough for doing that. If you have not had a chance to leave your honest review as well as a rating, an honest written review and a rating, I would ask that you do that. We even have a cool video that you can do. Leave it on the podcast, on the Apple Podcast platform. Greatly appreciated. Also, for those of you that are really looking forward to seeing like some of the previous episodes, or there was a guest that was happening like in the first 10 or 20 episodes and you can't find it on your favorite platform, just go to billykeels.com. When you're there at billykeels.com, go to the podcast tab. You can find every single version, video version, audio version. Just go there. Once again, it's billykeels.com. And once you're there, go to the podcasts tab and you can find every single episode, all of the show notes, every single thing that you could ever want. And then lastly, for those of you that are accredited investors and you are looking to be a part of a really cool, awesome accredited investor club, I would recommend that you send an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Once again, that's aiclub@billykeels.com. You and I can have a conversation, find out more about your interest, and you can be a part of this really super amazing club that is getting started, be at the grassroots level, and it would be awesome. aiclub@billykeels.com. Just send your email and you and I will get connected. So if you want to know more about how you can make your money ripple, like this is definitely the conversation that you're going to want to listen to. Today's guest started out as a sociology major, wanted to get there, but you know what? He didn't want to just be like this person who was just going through this theoretical college stuff. He wanted to, get his hands dirty and find out more about it. And he decided, in his last year of college, he was going to do something else to really understand more about how he could bring value to others. Got into the paper assets world. He learned a lot. Let's just put it that way. And he's willing to share what he learned with you. Also started having a little bit of not feeling so great because he was working with a lot of people that were not becoming financially free and they were seeking his services. And he was looking around and he was seeing a bunch of other people that were financial advisors and they were kind of struggling. And so he decided he needed to do something else. He found out, had a great conversation with someone who was part of the real assets world. And he is someone who has, gone from successful to not so successful back to successful. He's figured it out. He's learned the formula and now he's even teaching and sharing it with others. Location independence is something that is very big on his agenda, which is really cool for me and for you. And I really am looking forward to you hearing today's conversation with Chris Miles. And we're going to get to that just after this. Whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, you really like your day job and you want to continue to go into your day job every single day feeling better, knowing that you've created the right options for yourself. At the same time, you just don't have enough time to really get your head around, spend all the hours investing long distance. One way or the other, over the last number of years that I have been investing long distance, I've really understood a number of the major mistakes that you should avoid if you want to get to creating the right options for yourself much faster and being able to create more income sooner. And if you want to do that, if you want to understand more about that, I've made it really, really simple. You can just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. You can learn all the things that the 7 major mistakes that I've seen over and over again that I want you to avoid. Once again, you can go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. So if you want to know how following a few simple steps can really help to make your money ripple, you know what? So that you can create freedom and prosperity today, then guess what? Today's a conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? because today's guest not only got his career started in the customer service roles, and I know he's done a lot since then, and he's going to tell you a lot about that. He also then moved into the paper asset space. He really took a lot of focus in helping to train others so that they can learn how to go out and be successful. And then he also was an owner as well as a dance instructor. Wow, this is going to be absolutely phenomenal. He's also been on a number of different media outlets talking about the things where he's going to talk to us about today. And he's the founder as well of Cash Flow Expert and a radio show host of the fantastic, awesome podcast, The Chris Mills Money Show, as well as Money Ripples. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Chris Miles. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man. It's a pleasure to be here, Billy.
Hey, every once in a while I get tongue tied and I said Chris Mills, but I meant to say Chris Miles. Sorry about that. The Going Long family, they forgive me. So, they're used to me by now and this kind of stuff. So listen, Chris, I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. I know we have a lot of things in common, and I'm really looking forward to the Going Long family learning and growing as a result of this conversation. So, but as you know, I ask everybody the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 really quickly now. You're going to get 3 in the end. And then in the middle, we're going to get a chance to really know more about you and also all of the wonderful things that you're doing and how you're adding value to others. So, but the very first question is, help us understand, Chris, where is it that you live in the United States?
Yeah, last 20 years, I actually live here just south of Salt Lake City, Utah.
All right, fantastic. So it's a wonderful place, especially, depending on when you're out there, whether you're out there in the winter or the summer, it's always a fantastic place to be. So second question is, really wanted to help you share with me and the Going Long family, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
The last 24 hours, I said the most positive thing that's happened is really just shared experience with my family. Like, we're into the holidays and everything, and be able to not just, we're not about giving gifts, right? It's really about like, how do we share, give time, teach. Mm-hmm. So that's been one of the things that's been fun, is not only get that quality time, but have that time to help teach and really create a legacy. And that's kind of been our big focus for the week.
Oh, fantastic, man. Absolutely love that. And when you can share experiences versus just sharing things, it's something that definitely vibe with. And a lot of the Going Long family is definitely on the same level with you. So appreciate you sharing that. And listen, I give myself this impossible task in like 2.5 seconds. I tried to tell your entire backstory, and I even did it this time where I said your name wrong. So sorry about that again. But listen, I would love for you to share with the entire Going Long family, Chris, more about your backstory, telling it in your own words. And if you could also do us a favor and really talk to us about maybe some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey. And then from there, let's see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, every little decision you make just kind of alters your course a little bit more, to point you're like, how did I even end up here? It's perfect, but it's definitely not the path you expected, right? Yeah. I remember being a senior in high school thinking, I'm going to major in sociology. And people are like, what's sociology? I'm like, I really don't know. I just feel like that's what I should be doing. It seems like it's like psychology for groups of people, right? And I was just intrigued by human behavior. So I actually went in that major and stayed in it, surprisingly, the entire way through college, until almost getting my bachelor's. My intent eventually transitioned to, I want to become a business consultant. But I figure if I'm going to do that, I shouldn't have real life business experience, not just book smarts or just have a degree, right? So I went out and I said, all right, I'm going to put school on hiatus just for a year. Right before I got my bachelor's, I dropped out, basically, put on hold, went and I said, all right, I should have some sort of business. What's it going to be? And the first business that kind of came my way that popped, right, was actually becoming a financial advisor. Now, a little known to me, I didn't know that financial advisors, they'd take anybody with a heartbeat that could pass a test with at least 70%. Right. But at that time, I was like trying to interview, dress up, impress and everything. They're like, well, as long as you just have a heartbeat and a social security number, you don't have a record, you're good. And so I became a financial advisor, and doing the traditional stuff, of like, save everything, spend nothing, save it forever, save it in stock. So hopefully someday you might have something, all that kind of crap. Right. Basically the, Dave Ramsey, handbook, And so I did that I ended up doing it for 4 years. I actually dropped out of college, never went back to finish my bachelor's or my MBA. And then I ended up going down that path of being an entrepreneur. However, after about 4 years into it, 4 years in, I like evidence. I like to know that things work, right? I mean, that's the same reason why I went to do business in the first place, to have real life experience. Yeah. Well, looking at real life, I realized that my clients weren't becoming financially free, nor were the ones I was inheriting from decades of advice. And then I started to realize what's the real return of the stock market. It's not 12% like they always say it is. It was actually like 8, right? The real rate of return of the S&P 500, not the average as they say.
Yep.
So when I started putting in 8 numbers, I started putting in a little higher inflation than just 2 or 3%. It's like, what if it's 4, And it got really depressing. And I realized like, man, people aren't going to make it. So I would start to put in higher inflation number or lower inflation numbers, higher returns in the stock market, right? To at least give people hope. Well, of course, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Right at the end of 2005, one of my friends I trained to be a financial advisor left to go do real estate investing. And 4 months later, I call him up to wish him Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And while I'm doing that, I'm hoping he's going to say things like, yeah, it didn't work out so well. I'm like, great, well, come work for me. But he didn't say that. It was the exact opposite conversation. He said, man, my dad and I partnered up on so many deals. And Chris, that's been awesome. My dad's already doubled his income as a professor at the local university. I'm like, wait, in 4 months, he's doubled his income. Come on, that's too good to be true, right? I'm used to 6 to 8% returns, not that, and he was getting those huge returns. And I was like, come on, that's not real. And finally he stopped me. He said, Chris, how many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? I said, well, none, because even the retired ones still worry about running out of money. It's like, well, great job, Chris. Way to help no one. All right. How about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free? Not off the commissions you're earning, not off the renewal business, but actually doing these mutual fund investments. How many of you guys are financially free? And I started thinking about guys that even had worked in our office since the late 70s. And I realized none. Maybe one guy is. And I found out that guy wasn't either. Once he got laid off from the company, he was frantically trying to find work again. And so that's where I realized, I'm like, okay, you got my attention. Now what? He's like, dude, I'm not going to tell you. You just get to argue with me that real estate sucks and stocks are better. I'm like, okay, I'm open. Give me something. He said, all right, if you're really serious, get this book by Robert Kiyosaki called Who Took My Money? It's a lesser known Rich Dad book, right? And then go start listening to this AM talk radio show locally here in Utah with these 2 real estate investors. And so I did. A few months later, I realized I can't teach this stuff anymore. I got to get out. So March of 2006, I quit at the height of my practice, left it, said, I'll never teach about money again. I'm done. That's it. I'll just go teach ballroom dancing, right? And do mortgages. I was a mortgage broker too. So I kept doing mortgages. But after a while, I wanted to know what these guys knew. And so eventually by applying some of that stuff, I was able to retire, be financially independent by the middle of 2006. Eventually came out of retirement 2007, teach people how I did it. Recession kicked my butt, had to overcome that, went from millionaire to upside down millionaire, had to dig out of that hole without filing for bankruptcy, but was able to get out of that hole with no money and no credit and was able to become financially independent the second time at the end of 2016. And so just to, kind of put that extra nail in the coffin to say, this time I'm wiser. I'm not an idiot 28, 29-year-old that was a little bit too prideful and arrogant, right? So that's kind of where I am today. Teach people now, once again, to get out of the rat race and be financially free.
So that's absolutely fantastic because it comes back to, once again, you've demonstrated this ability to teach others, right? You've learned the lessons and then you pass those lessons forward. One of the things that I'm just super curious about is you mentioned that you were a millionaire, upside down millionaire, and then you realized that you were able to do it again. So a lot of times people will say, especially when they see millionaires and billionaires. I was actually just speaking to a friend today at lunch, and he was talking about the fact that, people can be millionaires or billionaires, they go broke, and then they become millionaires and billionaires again. It's because they learned something. And I would love for you to share with us today, like, what is it that you learned between upside down millionaire and then second time being able to achieve success?
Yeah, it's funny because the very thing that was successful in the beginning, I had forgotten about, right? Because, I started creating residual and passive streams of income coming in. I was working like a couple hours a week, but I was making $4 or $5 grand a month, which had never happened to me before. I mean, I struggled making $4 or $5 grand a month working overtime hours before, right? And then all of a sudden it almost seemed so easy. And again, I was focusing on cash flow. That's the one thing I learned from, listening to that radio show and early in those days with those guys that they mentored me was, oh no, it's about cash flow. It's not about accumulating money, which is what I always taught as a financial advisor, right? It's accumulate, save, get your little, you're basically like a squirrel with a bunch of nuts. Yeah. Save
your 4%, your 4% rule, your 4% rule. There you go. You're going to move on that. Live on 4%. Yeah.
Well, and the crazy thing is, even 15 plus years ago, we were even questioning the 4% rule. We said, maybe that's too high, which it is. Like you see the whole FIRE movement going on. I tell people, I was like, man, that FIRE movement, there's so many people going to get burned because 4% is not enough. Even the Wall Street Journal just came out a month ago and said 3% is probably more accurate. And I bet you they're a little bit high too.
Yeah.
And so, I was trying to do that same thing, right? Let's try to live on like 3%. If I save up $2 million, I can live on 50 or 60,000 a year or 5,000 a month. But instead, I had very little money out there invested, but I was coming in with 4,000 or 5,000 a month coming in passively. But then as I started to get the money, I thought, well, man, it's either go big or go home, because you can buy a $100,000 property and it appreciates 10%. You make 10,000. What if I buy a $500,000 property, appreciates 10%? That's 50,000. So I started thinking like bigger, right? I was like, well, geez, like this appreciation never stops, right? So I switched from cash flow focus to appreciation, almost like a financial advisor mindset again. When I switched to appreciation, that's when I got burned, right? Because then I was trying to go big, wasn't focused on cash flow. I even bought negative cash flow in properties, right? So I'm negative cash flow. I'm like, it's okay. The appreciation will make up for it. Oh. And so bam, just like that was bad. Plus two, I started cutting off some of those streams of income, like some business streams that were coming in residually, because when I came out of retirement, I was with these other guys that were also financially independent, right? And so we were trying to teach people to do it. And they said, Chris, we want you all focused here. This is our mission, our big objective. So don't get distracted with all these other little streams of income. So I said, all right, I'll cut those off. And let's just focus on this and make this one big active stream. Totally bad. And also the market we were focusing on were real estate investors, also banking on appreciation, by the way. So it was like the perfect storm. Everything started hitting. I didn't have those streams of income coming in. Now I had all these expenses run up with a new business and personal, because I had my lifestyle upped itself too. So the next thing I know, I'm in the hole 16,000 a month, right? Like I'm short 16,000 a month. And I thought, well, I'll just work my way out of it. I'll dig out. And I just had this ego, like I have the golden touch. Anything I touch turns to gold. So that ego and that pride got in the way and really just kicked my butt, right? That's why I had to get honest with myself to say, listen, you're drowning, Chris, and it's drowning fast. Had to foreclose on a property in 2009, actually right before my now 12-year-old son, a week before he was born. It was bought at a courthouse. Had to pay them $2,000 to stay in for 2 more weeks as we're getting foreclosed on. Things like that, just crazy stuff. And so the things I learned, obviously, were just like what you just heard is, one, cash flow is everything. Multiple streams of passive income have to happen. I don't care if you're a wholesaler or a flipper, you're actively investing in real estate. If you don't have other streams of income in, you can be shut down at any moment's notice. I mean, how many times have we heard in the last year, almost 2 years now, about non-essential businesses being shut down and now becoming non-essential employees, right? I mean, here in the States, we have people being fired that are in the military, people that are nurses and doctors. The very people that were heroes last year are now getting fired this year. So nobody is safe, right? So you got to have those multiple streams of income coming in from multiple sources. And, don't let the ego get in the way, right? Like don't just bank on appreciation, bank on cash flow, but also don't let your ego get in the way. Like really be humble and realize that, you need to protect yourself. You need to play defense, not just offense.
Yeah. So being able to go through it, having been able to learn one time and then get back to it, you recognize that one, being able to go offensively and defensively is something that's important, really focusing on cash flow. Another thing is focusing on passive streams of income. That's very important, like meaning that you are decoupled from the hours that you work, passive income, which I love that you share that with us now, and being able to then replicate that model so that you can get back to a position of success so that you're not upside down. Wow, don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. One of the things, Chris, that we absolutely love here, and I know this is something that's close to your heart. Everybody knows I live in Barcelona, Spain. I have been actively and passively investing exclusively in the United States for the last number of years. And so this whole thing of being able to not have to be in the same physical location, where 90+% of the books that tell you when you want to get into real estate specifically, they say you should live in the place where you're investing. I fundamentally don't believe that. Everyone that's here, I think most of them don't necessarily believe that. And they're looking for more reasons as to why are other people decoupling where they invest from the place that they live. I know this is also something that's really close to your heart in this terms of geographic independence. So, but maybe you can talk to us about why it doesn't have to be, you don't have to live in the exact same place that you are investing in for you.
Yeah, a lot of people think you have to touch, taste, feel a property, right? But in this day and age, it's easier than ever not to. And it's interesting you mentioned that you're in Barcelona, because my wife and I were supposed to go to Barcelona March 15th of 2020 and get her citizenship over there, right? And we even looked, started looking like, is real estate good in Europe and parts of there? And we looked at it and it's like, no, we can get way better in the States.
I was going to say, we'll have a talk about that offline.
But we always look around. Like we don't, in fact, I tell people, most of my clients, especially if they're in the Western half of the United States, I tell them, don't invest out here. Like the Western half of the United States is high price, lower rent ratios, right? Yeah. Where if I look out east to like the Midwest, the Southeast, like around like Tennessee, the Carolinas, Missouri, Oklahoma, places like that, where it seems like a boring place to invest. And the one thing I've learned, especially from the last time, when I got burned to this time, is boring is sexy. Like the more boring it is, the better, right? Because I want predictable, stable cash flow. Yeah. And so I find great deals halfway across the country. We never have seen them before with our physical eyes in our lives. But, and we tend to use like turnkey investment companies, right? So we go use them. We outsource a little bit. We don't go and pull up the websites and just look at every house for sale. We look at ones that have actually already been vetted, and they've already been they're already renovated and rent ready. So all we have to do is buy them. We already have another property manager on it, because I'll tell you, I'm the worst property manager ever. Don't ever let me manage a property.
Why is that? I think I'm the worst ever, but I want to know why you think you're the worst ever.
Well, because I did it like before the last recession, when I was doing real estate, I was being my own property manager to save money because I was negative cash flow. Right.
Yeah, right.
And, on some of those properties. And so I would try to manage it to save a few bucks. But the thing is, like when push came to shove, I was not good at holding my boundaries. Right. I would hear the sob story and try to make up for it and do things that way. And that's just horrible, right? It doesn't work. So that's why, having a property manager that separates me, get more of my heart gets in the way of my brain, right? Let them handle all that stuff. Only the big decisions, if there's something that has to be repaired, great, then let me know. But otherwise, you guys handle it. You do everything. Again, I buy the property and I want to get the checks. And man, it's been worth the return, especially when you get the right numbers. Anybody if you look at the West Coast of the United States, like California, Oregon, Washington, horrible places. Like whenever I get people from there, I'll tell them, if they tell me they have an investment property there, I'll say, great, sell it. Well, Chris, you haven't heard the numbers yet. I'm like, I already know. You got high equity and no cash flow. And every single time that's the case, never once have I seen a property say, that's actually pretty good. You should keep that. They're always tons of very low return on their equity that they have. And so I tell them, sell that, move that equity into other properties out east. You'll make way higher returns and you'll be way more free.
And I love one of the things that you just talked about. You in Going Long Family, I want you to be hopefully you heard what Chris just said. He didn't say the return on their investment. He said the return on the equity. And that is something that you absolutely must watch over time, because just because you have a certain amount of ownership in a property, that doesn't mean that it's working as hard as it should. Typically, when you're watching it over time, it's working less and less for you. So that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. And I love that you just said that, Chris, because it is something that I love being able to talk to people about, which is looking and when watching the return on equity, because that is a way for you to also to pull out equity, use that someplace else so that you can continue to make sure that your capital is always working as efficiently and as effectively as possible.
Let me give you a quick example.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Just so I had a client came in from New Zealand, right? Because I'll get people from outside the States that say, hey, I think I want to invest in the States. I see the numbers and it's way better than what I can get in Australia or New Zealand or in the UK or something, and or even Canada. And he came from New Zealand and he had properties in the States, but he had them for the last 10 years to where every property was paid off there in Kansas City, Missouri, right? Every property is paid off and it was paying him good cash flow, but the return on equity was just so low. It was like a 5% return. I was like, listen, we can move that to other properties, get you at least a 10%, cash on cash return, at least, even if you didn't put any debt on it, even if there's no leverage, even with leverage, we could probably get over 10%. But was like, we could probably double your cash flow, and move it over. But again, it's tricky when you got like $1.8 million of properties paid off.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, they're just not doing anything. They're just holding steady. And there's a certain point before that time, even, that you should be able to turn that equity over.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the things you want to keep an eye on. Listen, so one of the things, Chris, I do want to just talk to you before. I know our time's a bit limited, but one of the things that I'd be interested in you, because you also are you're very passionate about teaching and helping others to learn certain things, and something that's very simple for you and I. Like, you don't have to invest beyond your backyard. You just have to select the right, understand what you want, go to the right location, get the right team, and then purchase whatever property or whatever opportunity is the right one. What do you find from your interactions? Because you have lots of interactions with people. What do you find that is one of the biggest blockers from someone saying, hey, I live in city X, so I can't invest in city Y?
Uh-huh. I mean, it's really just a mindset issue. It really is.
Love it.
And when they realize that they can actually still do just as much due diligence, if not more, and not get emotionally caught up. The problem is, when you go see a physical property, you can get married to it very easily. Where if I'm seeing it from a distance, I can say, you know what? Let me look at the numbers. Let me kind of stress test this a little bit. Let me just kind of nitpick the heck out of it to see if it's really worthwhile getting. And you'll find out that, when you start to look at it that way, it's more of a logical, more objective point of view versus a subjective point of view. So once people get past that point and realize, wait, I have everything in place. I have the right property managers. I have all the right questions that I've answered about this property. I can actually feel just as confident, if not more confident, than a property that's in my own backyard.
Yeah, no, absolutely love that. And listen, I want us to get through a couple of the going long final 3 questions, and then I want you to tell us a little bit more about what you have going on over at Money Ripples as well. But one of the things is, I never ask anyone the going long final 3, Chris, unless you, because today you're our guest, that you tell me that you're ready for me to ask you. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. So listen, Chris, first thing, we started with you over on your side of the pond in Utah. Fantastic. I'd like to bring it back to this side now too, because I'm over here in Europe, and I would love for you to share with the Going Long family. What is your favorite European city that you have either visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I had 2 European trips canceled in 2020. It was supposed to be my first time to Europe. I was actually supposed to go to Barcelona to have my wife sign her documentation to become a citizen there. And then the other one was supposed to go to Italy, northern Italy there. I was going to go visit Switzerland, where a lot of my great-grandfather grew up, near Bern, right?
Oh, okay.
But I'll tell you, my big bucket list item there is actually, it's multiple countries. It's walking the Camino, from like right about the border of France, Spain, all the way to Portugal. So that's my
Camino de Santiago, Camino de Santiago. Right. Very cool. Awesome. Well, listen, let me know when you're on your way back to Spain. So definitely, I have not done the Camino de Santiago, but I've seen it. And when you want to catch up with me here in Barcelona, I'd be happy to show you around my new adoptive hometown. So with that, second of the Going Long final 3 really has to do with a lot of the things that I have seen in my interactions with very successful people. And I consider you to be someone that is very successful, Chris, and a lot of the things that you've done, helping others to move forward, et cetera. One of the things that I've noticed about very successful people, Chris, is typically people are very successful because they get it right the first time, that they don't have to make lots of mistakes. Wait, did I just say that? I think I get all nervous. No, it's actually kind of just a little joke. It's an inside joke with me and the Going Long family. The reality is, Chris, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. And the thing is, successful people, they make a whole lot more mistakes, a lot more. But successful people do one thing very, very differently. And this is not a joke. This is real. Is that every time there is a real mistake or learning opportunity or whatever you want to call it, that's really relevant, they always stop. They learn from the mistake, and then they put different tactics and actions in place to minimize the possibility or the probability of that same mistake happening again. So I would love for you to help us as we think about, if you can think about one of the learning opportunities that you had or mistakes, but more importantly, what is the one lesson that you know that someone here today in the Going Long family needs to hear so that you can help them to minimize the probability of the exact same thing happening to them?
Yeah, obviously I shared a big failure and a lot of the lessons I learned, which kind of apply to that. But even bigger picture than that, I think one thing that's been a common theme for me is just persistence, right? Like not giving up. Now, here's the thing is that, like you said, when you have mistakes, you got to stop and correct. And which means in some cases you give up, right? But you're not really giving up on the big vision of what you're trying to accomplish. You might give up on the strategy, but you're not giving up on the ultimate objective or goal that you're trying to hit. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they usually just give up a little bit too soon. It's like that 3 feet from goal, right? Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, like, there's so many times I could have quit. Heck, even just for me 6 years ago, I was going through a divorce. I could have quit. I could have just said, I'm done. And I almost did. And I was emotionally drained. But it was during that time, that it took me back to my previous experience of, the financial failure that I had, going through an emotional and financial challenge at the same time, going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And by taking those same lessons and applying it, and just applying it very quickly this time versus learning it the hard way and just banging my knee against the table over and over again, I got through that way faster. And it was just a year later, I was able to be financially independent, right? So that's the key, is that it's always this pushing through a little bit more, but remember to quit the strategy, but continue on the objective that you have.
Fantastic. And continue to be persistent. So really appreciate you sharing that with us. And then lastly, Chris, would love for you to share with the Going Long family. Love to really help to feed the mind. What's one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
Let's see. I know you've already had too many people say Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to say a book that I love is by Mike Michalowicz called The Pumpkin Plan. That was one I actually read while I was going through my divorce. It was timely because that one talked about like those prize-winning pumpkins you see about in the news. They were just humongous, right? Mm-hmm. They talked about how they actually grow them. And as they get these prize-winning seeds, they might pay $100,000 just to plant the seeds to get these, which may or may not work. They plant it. As the vine starts to grow, they start chopping off the smallest pumpkins until they just leave one big pumpkin. And that's the one that they leave. And so I'd recommend reading that book.
Right, the Pumpkin Plan. So that's definitely a first, and we're going to add that and make sure that that's there in the show notes. And I think to myself, we got started here and we talked about this guy who wanted to be a sociology major, but it wasn't just about understanding the theory. It was really about how do you go and make that real? What experience can you bring in and be able to make it more than just a theoretical exercise? And then you talked about getting into kind of the financial aspects of things and then becoming a financial advisor. You left the college to the side and started going out and started understanding more about the financial services world, the paper assets world. And then at a certain point, you said to yourself, well, are these people actually getting any closer to their goals, their real financial goals, as a result of our interactions together? And that wasn't really happening. And then you had the good fortune to have some people or friends in your life that kind of said, hey, listen, Chris, we need to talk to you about something. Hey, this whole financial services thing, let's have this conversation. And they helped to open your eyes to a whole new world, which is being able to invest in real assets. And then you went from where you were to a millionaire to an upside down millionaire. And then you realized, hey, listen, there are a lot of lessons that you could learn. And one of the main lessons that you learned from that was making sure that not only were you maintaining persistence, but you were always focusing on cash flow. You were decoupling your earning potential from the hours that you were placing and putting in. And then you know what? You even have taken that to the next level and continue to help to teach others, share your experiences so that they can get closer to their goals and their dreams much faster. And it doesn't matter where they live in the world, but making sure that they're focused on creating different streams of income, being able to have their money ripple so that they can get more and closer to their goals and their dreams. And so listen, I know that I'm looking forward to talking to you more in the future, inviting you here, seeing you here in Barcelona. But I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, what's the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about you, Chris Miles, what it is that you're doing, more about Money Ripple, and also more about your podcast?
Yeah, 2 easy ways. 1, go to moneyripples.com. You can go to our website, check out stuff there. Or 2, you can check out our show, The Chris Miles Money Show, that you can find on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Fantastic. Love that you make it very simple. Money Ripples, we're going to include those in the show notes as well. And also the Chris Miles Money Show, where you can find it on YouTube and on your favorite platforms. So Chris, I just want to thank you, man, from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. So thank you very much.
Such a pleasure. Thanks, Billy.
All right, perfect. And just if you give me 2 seconds, just a couple last words for the Go Along family. Listen, Go Along family, Chris really left a lot for you. He even left ways for you to get in touch with him, find out more about what he's doing, more about what's happening over at Money Ripples. I know that I'm looking forward to welcoming you back for the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.